Hi, my name is Rocky, and I will be doing a bearing installation on my LEWS carbon fiber, brought to you by Boca Bearings. So first, I'm going to show you the current free spool mode with the stock bearings. Now that's not too bad. So we're going to start with taking the side plate off. You must loosen the little knob right here on the left hand side if you're a left hand retrieve, or the right hand side if you're right hand retrieve. Once that's loose, turn it up. Take the side plate off. The spool will probably come out with it. Pop the spool out. As you can see, there is the bearing right in there, and there's also a locking mechanism. Take a sharp object. I use a small flathead screwdriver to pry the locking spring out. Keep your finger over it so the locking spring doesn't jump away. Once you get that out, you can place it on your Boca bearing work mat if you have one. There's ridges on each side, on all three sides. Then take your sharp object and pry the old bearing out. Sometimes they're hard, but it will come out. And once you have the bearing out, just place it on your mat. Take a Q-tip. Take a Q-tip and clean inside here. Take all the old grease out. You don't want any grease in there. Make sure that it's nice and clean. Clean all the grease out. Make sure there's no grease, no dirt, anything. Once you have all the grease cleaned out, take your new bearings. Grab your new bearing. Place it back inside of the spool, like so. And it should just push right in. You can take your sharp object and kind of just make sure it's pressed in. If you use a flathead screwdriver, it's easier. Then take your locking spring and replace it. Hold your finger over half of it and just gently push it back in until it pops back in place. Once you hear it click in place, then you know it's in. Just make sure all the little corners are in there. And that one is done. Now we'll do the one right here on the spool. Now, as I said in a previous video, you can use a pair of regular pliers if you don't have line spool pliers. If you have line spool pliers, it is much easier. I'll try and make this easy for you guys to see. Just push the pin down, grab it from the other side, wiggle it a couple times, and it'll pop right out. Place that on your mat. Just remember there's a smaller side and a bigger side to that pin, and remember which way it goes in. Take the old bearing off, set it aside, grab a new Q-tip, clean all the grease off of the spool right here. Make sure there's none on there. Clean in here. Just make sure everything's nice and clean. I like to clean both sides. We'll get it nice and clean, the whole thing, since we have it open. Just make sure this is all nice and clean. Nice and clean. No grease. Then take your new bearing. Take your new boca bearing. And it should slide right on. Just like that. Then take your pin and place it back in there, skinny side first, or else it won't go back in place. And just push it back till it's like halfway in there. So you have an even amount on both sides. And there's the spool completely finished. Now we will do the last one, the tension knob. Turn the handle till you can get to the tension knob to where it's easiest to come off. Loosen it. Take it off. Set this aside. Sometimes there's a locking mechanism in here, sometimes there's not. This one I don't believe has one. Oh, this one does. This is not the... This one's more of just a little circle, but it has two little spots to pop it from. But it's hard to show you. Once you pry that out, set it aside on your mat. The bearing should just pop right out. Set that aside. Take a new Q-tip. Clean inside of your tension knob cavity. Make sure there's no grease. Nice and clean. Take your tension knob. I'm going to clean inside on the reel and also inside of your tension knob. Remove any grease and grime, whatever could be in there. Nice and clean. Then grab your last bearing. Take it and just pop it on in there. It should just drop right in. And it's in there. Then grab your locking mechanism. Locking rings, some are like a star. This one happens to be a circle. So now we'll try and get this back on. Oh, oh. Just place it back over the hole. Place it back over the hole halfway in. I know this is hard to see, it's such a small thing here. Take your flathead screwdriver or whatever object you're using to pry the bearings out or the locking mechanisms and just push it back in there. Make sure it's seated correctly to where it's not going to jump out on you. Once it's seated in there correctly, as you can see, you're finished. And then you just have to put your reel back together. Tension knobs back on. Take your spool, put the spool back in, put your side plate back on, screw the side plate holding screw back on, turn your magnets all the way off, turn your tension knob all the way completely loose. And now I will show you free spool mode after the boca bearing install. as you can see and hear, it is much better than the stock bearings that came in this reel. Still going. Still going. Done. I will show you one more time. Going. Still going. And finished. And remember, these bearings are brand new now. They haven't been broken in. Once they're broken in, you will get 20% more casting distance, much smoother reel, smoother sounding, smoother everything, better casts. Thank you for your time. Have a good night. And that's another boca bearing install done.